So today is Monday the 13th, Monday the 13th. And I was just curious as to why the number 13 is so unpopular or considered to be so unlucky. Because they even say that there are buildings that they skip the 13th floor just because of this idea about 13 being unpopular or unlucky. And when I looked it up, it said that the reason was that in the Bible, Judas Iscariot was the 13th guest at the Last Supper, and that was considered unlucky because he actually betrayed Christ in the Christian history. And so then I looked and I said, okay, but why is Friday so unlucky? And it said because that's when Christ was crucified, which I think is so interesting to find the reason behind something, because I thought it was because all of these bad things happened on the 13th, and it was really that one seminal event. But at the same time, had that one event not happened, you would not have Christianity as we know it. So out of this bad thing that happens, there's actually good. And I say that because we've been talking the last couple of days about this two-ness that we experience, that you can have pain, but also promise and purpose in that same moment or event. And it's the same thing here as we tell the story of the Last Supper, that there was pain that came out of it, but there was also the good that we celebrate in the religion. So I want you to be aware of that, because we all have this past that we look to. Some of us are defined by our past. It's that one moment that this happened, and I blame everything on that moment. If that had not happened when I was 29 years old, about to turn 30, if my mother had not been killed by a drunk driver, my life would be so different. That is what I tell myself sometimes. And out of that moment, it was a defining moment for me. There was all of this pain that my best friend was gone. I was not prepared to live life without her. And I always tell people that I felt like in that moment that she died, I died. Not literally, but figuratively, because the person I was died. Yet out of that, I had to learn new skills. I had to become a new person. I had to save myself, and I had to be a mom. And so I really learned a lot. I got a lot of therapy. All of those things made me a better person. So out of something bad, I was able to choose something good. And I think that's really powerful. So what we've done in the last few days, I hope that kind of puts a stamp on it, that we have this chance to, out of something bad, redeem something good and be grateful for it. That being said, I want to do a quick check-in, because this is the 13th day, and you have been with us, many of you, for 13 days. And so I want you to, if you're willing, to check in addition to saying good morning, like Kim and Roz and Linda and Lois. In addition to that, y'all just are amazing me, because you just are faithful to the process, and you continue to bless us with your morning greeting. But in addition to that, I want you to write what you feel about yourself for being part of this process for these 13 days. You have stuck with it. By now, by the 10th, we say people give up. But by now, you have not given up. You have continued and gone forward. So put something that you think about yourself for doing it. For me, I'm proud of me. I'm proud of me because I am going through this process with you. As you answer the questions, I'm answering the questions. And guess what? I'm proud of me for filling up my cup, as I also help other people to fill up theirs. And I'm just grateful that I'm doing it, because I could be doing anything else, but instead I'm doing that. I'm really proud of that. So if you get a chance, would you put something in the comment? Dawn said it's so important we have a choice. Yes, Dawn. Yes. And that choice is everything. And if there's an underlying theme, Dawn, to this program, it is about the power of choice. I think sometimes we go through life and we act as if we're victims to everything. And it's all about the way we choose to see it. So the subcontext of this program is changing our perspective so that we can change our lives. So as we do that, if you get a chance, put in there something good that you're proud of yourself about. But right now, I want to go back to the question that we had yesterday. And I want to make sure that we revisit that, because that question is really important as we figure out what holds us back. So the question was, what will I do when I realize I was triggered? And yesterday, some of you put your answers in the chat. If you did it after hours, hopefully you put your answer in there. If you want to repeat your answer by putting it in the comments now, you're welcome to do that. What I'm also interested in is whether, as you went throughout the day and did your research and did your reflection, did it change your answer at all? What are you going to do when you're triggered? And when Dawn speaks of that power of choice, this is a choice, because when I'm triggered, I can say, woe is me. I'm going to go back and lay in the bed and feel bad for myself. Or I can say, I know I've just been triggered. I'm going to call it for what it is. And now I'm going to do something that empowers me instead of pulling me down. This is all about saying what I will do to make the outcome that I'm looking for happen. And I love, love, love that power of choice. So if there's anything that you want to share, I would love for you to do that. And Dawn says, I am proud of me for my intentionality to self-care. And I think that's really, really important. I keep saying it's important. All of this is important because what we're doing, some things happened last year, and there are several people that I dealt with who said, you know what, I'm not taking care of the world right now. I'm taking care of me. And it was this resounding message, we're taking care of me. But guess what was behind that message? What was the next step to that message? It was, but how do I take care of me? Because we are often the people who take care of everyone else. That's why when I say I'm proud of you for taking care of you for once, instead of hopping to take care of your children or your parents or your siblings or your coworkers. You are prioritizing yourself. And so I really want you to remember that self-care is so very important. Karen says, I am proud of me for choosing to participate in this process and to see it through to completion. Yes, yes. Karen, I'm packing up right now. And as I pack up the house, do you know how many journals I've started and not completed? And it's this process. I get so excited in the beginning, but I don't see it out to the end. And so that's why it's good to pat ourselves on the back and say, I'm seeing it through to completion. So that's a beautiful thing. So yesterday we asked you, what will you do when you realize you are being triggered? And as you do that, if you want to share it in the comments, you're more than welcome to do that. When we're triggered, though, we have to be really aware of the ways that we're communicating with ourselves. If we're triggered by another person, we also need to think about the ways that we could communicate with that person. So this is the reason why today I wanted to just briefly share with you the wholehearted communication model. We went over it before, but communication, I think, is at the heart of every important and powerful interaction. And there are often times when our communication goes bad and everything else then goes bad because of it. So I want to go through this communication model quickly to remind you that as you're being triggered, either by other people or internal thoughts, the ways that we talk to ourselves or them can be the way out or the way that we dig ourselves deeper. And we're not going deeper in a bad way. We're going deeper in a good way. So I'm sharing right now this wholehearted communication model, and I will tell you that this has saved me many, many times. Forgetting to use this has also kicked me in the butt. So we talk about wholehearted communication, that we speak, listen, and respond with our whole hearts. And so when I'm speaking with my whole heart, I'm making sure that I speak for myself only. I often say to people, when I speak, I'm not speaking for all women, I'm not speaking for all Black women, and I'm not speaking for all Black women in my house, because there's two of us. So instead of me speaking for her and me, then instead I'm going to speak for me. Why is this important? Because anytime you talk to someone and you say, well, everybody thinks this, or somebody else was thinking this too, then I think you diminish their ability to deal with the issue. And also you diminish communication, because you're thinking, oh my gosh, everybody's talking about me. In fact, that's the example that I used yesterday. This all or nothing approach is also very prevalent when we're talking to ourselves, because sometimes you speak to yourself and say, everybody feels this way about me, or everybody is thinking this about me, or everybody's talking about me. And I'm telling you, number one, none of us is that well known that everybody is talking about us. And whenever we're using extremes, we're stressed. We want to, in communication, be authentic, coming from a good place. We want to avoid sarcasm and criticism. And I'm telling you this, especially when you're talking to yourself, that when you're very critical of yourself, it is not making you better. In terms of condemning ourselves, that doesn't make us better at all. Now, if we convict ourselves and say, okay, I can build on this, there's a difference. But that criticism can be the worst thing that we do to ourselves. Same thing in connecting with each other. And then the last part is that we speak our truth from a place of love. And that means I speak my truth not to pull you down and to demean you, but instead to build you up. And so I think that's so important when we speak to ourselves, because a lot of times we are our worst enemy in terms of the way that we speak to ourselves. I'm going to just go over the two today. And the second one I think is equally important. It is listening with our whole hearts. So we're going to speak with our whole hearts, whether it's to other people or ourselves, but we're also going to listen with our whole hearts. And that's 4 components of that is to, number one, to respect confidentiality. That if I have a conversation with you, I'm going to keep that between the two of us. It is your job to share it, not mine. And so I think it's really important that I keep that confidentiality. When it comes to self-talk and what we do, I think sometimes we reveal far too much information to the wrong people. And I think we have to be careful and know contextually when should we share and when should we maybe hold that for somebody who's in our inner circle. Bear witness is I'm just going to be there to hear what it is you have to say and to understand you. Sometimes it's the power of just doing that. And even with ourselves, bearing witness to what we're going through, like what? Let me figure out what I'm feeling in this moment. You're listening to your own thoughts, your own mind, your own heart is so important. Being fully present is you saying, I'm here. I'm not thinking about a million other things. I'm really paying attention to you when you're communicating with other people, and then paying attention to yourself. Have you ever said this and said out loud or in your mind, you know what, that doesn't even bother me. But at the same time, your heart is racing. You're feeling uncomfortable. Being fully present means, wait a minute, what I'm saying out of my mouth and what I'm feeling with my body are two different things. What's up with that? Let me figure that out. And then the last part is suspending judgment. This whole idea of communicating with other people, I'm not there to judge you. I'm there to listen and bear witness. And in the same ways, we can judge the heck out of ourselves, and it can be really detrimental. So this whole idea of communication, I want to emphasize that speaking and listening with your whole heart is something that I apply, especially to my triggers with other people, but also when I'm internally triggered by something that's bothersome to me. So I want you to be aware of that. You know what? I think it's important too that as we develop skills to be better with other people, that we also develop skills to be better with ourselves. Many years ago, my sister and I think we're serial entrepreneurs, but we created this company called Homework. And the whole idea was when you go to work, you learn all these skills, you learn to communicate, you learn, how to lead and all these things, and you give your best self when you go to work. But those same skills are needed at home. But when we get home, I don't communicate. I snap at my sons. I kick the dog. I don't do, here I am, probably perfect at work. But at home, I do something different. And do I want to pop off at people at work? Yes, but I control myself and I use my skills, but I forget them when I get home. To me, it's the same idea that I use these skills with other people, but when it comes to myself, I throw them out the window. Well, we are no longer going to do that. So I want to make sure that as you're triggered, that we understand that when we communicate with ourselves and others, we don't want to make the trigger worse. In order to make it better, we communicate by speaking and listening wholeheartedly. Any questions about that? Any additional comments? Let me just double check because I want to make sure that if you're saying anything to me, that I am acknowledging it. And I won't, because some of them are jumping up on the screen, I won't see everything. But I do want to read a couple out as it comes up. Kimberly says, I wake up looking forward to these life classes, giving me encouragement to my next chapter. You just bless my soul with that. And I'm so glad that you're in that place. And then I want to just read one more. And that is, Rosalind says, I'm proud of myself for doing the work to identify what I want out of my life. And I'm proud of you too, Rosalind. Thank you for sticking with that. Wait a minute, I got to do one more. Linda says, I'm proud of me for doing something about what bothers me rather than just talking about it. This is about action. And when you say that, Linda, you have captured the heart of what we're doing. So, as we talk about this idea of action, I want to go back to this whole week is all about what stops us. And it takes us back to the wholehearted conflict model. And if you remember, it's this idea that you have conflict, but it's made bigger or smaller by what's gone on in our past and our present. And so when we talk about the past, we are talking about past experiences, past beliefs, and even our past personality traits. So today we're really going to go into understanding that past, because what has happened in the past, what has guided us in the past, can have the ability to rear its head in 2025. And we want to be aware of it and deal with it. So when I talk about something like past experiences and how they can affect us, a lot of times in the work that we do, it will come up that someone has been molested as a child. And can I tell you, when something is so devastating and traumatic, that can actually impact a lot of what we do today. It impacts my personality. If I have had that kind of trauma, then there's something that says to me, there's possibly something that says to me that I cannot trust people, especially if the molestation was carried out by someone that you should have been able to trust. And so where is that as a separate event? It could be that in my present, that when I deal with people and they disappoint me, immediately something comes to my mind saying, see, I knew I can't trust people. And whereas in the past we didn't connect, that lack of trust came from this past event, we're absolutely able to see that now. In fact, when that molestation happens to me, that's the experience. The belief is I cannot necessarily trust people. And the personality trait is I go into protection overdrive, or I'm going to control everything. In that situation, I wasn't able to control anything. So in the rest of my life, when I become at work a leader, but also bossy, it's this idea that I want to be able to control everything. And so sometimes if we take the time to try to figure out and connect the dots, it'll illuminate things and say, oh my goodness, that's the reason why I'm doing that. Now, for some experiences, it's not interconnected, like that example that I just gave you. For me, I was the firstborn. So my mother would always say, you're the oldest, you know better. You're the oldest, you're responsible for your sister. You're the oldest, you should do this, 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 and this. And that sound and of her telling me you're the oldest, you should, has rung in my ears for 55 years, 55, because I'm 59, so my sister's 55. And so out of that, you can say, okay, here's the hard part of that. The hard part of that is I carried a weight that I'm responsible not only for me, but for some reason I extended it not just to my sister, but for everybody else. You should know better. You should be responsible. You should take care. And so I carried that weight, and it became a burden at times, especially as I took on the weight of everyone. But yet at the same time, this also told me you're a leader. You're responsible, you're in charge. It was good things, so that when I went into corporate America, leadership was not new to me. I already knew how to lead in some ways, and then they helped me to get even better at leadership. So as on one side, it was a negative. It comes with what we've been talking about the last few days. On the other side, it was this positive thing. And I'm not sure if you've had any experiences like that there's something that happened to you, whether it's experience or a belief or your personality, that could be a negative, but is also a positive. I'd love for you to share it in the comments. But what I'm trying to show you is that, like we said the last couple of days, anything can be redeemed. There's a negative of it, but there's also a positive. And so when we look back at our past and talk about our experiences, our personality, and our personality, and our beliefs, understanding and unpacking that is going to help us to overcome what it is that's going to hold us back this year. So that leads me to the question that I have for you today. And that question, simply put, I want to read it right. is that considering your experiences, beliefs, and personality traits, what's one that stands out and how has it shaped you, both negatively and positively? Like, I want you to go back and really think about what stands out about my past. And here's how you figure out what stands out about your past. I always tell clients that it's the stories that stick out, the stories that people tell about you all the time, or the stories that you tell about yourself all the time. I often will say that I was a child of divorce. And when I was growing up, I didn't think that that was a problem. In fact, it was a blessing because my parents were like oil and water. And so I always said divorce didn't impact me at all. But when I started to do my work, I realized it impacted me in a huge way. When I got married the first time, as soon as something went wrong, I was like, we could get a divorce. My parents did. It didn't hurt me. But it did, because it created this sense of me being other that I just truly wasn't aware of until I started to do my work. That's the other part about dealing with this, is that in starting to do our work, we're able to connect the dots. And once you're aware of something, you have the ability to choose to change it. So when I started connecting the dots, I'm like, whoa, that divorce impacted me in negative ways. But now let me figure out how I can take that negative impact and actually upgrade it and change it and make it something that works for me right now. I can choose to redeem anything. So let's read the question one more time. Considering your experiences, beliefs, and personality. Considering your experiences, beliefs, and personality, you're going to choose one of them that stands out. One thing that stands out. What's one thing that stands out, and how has it shaped me both positively and negatively? So I'm going to look back and say, what's something that I see as a seminal experience for me? Something that once that happened, I always remember it when I think about my childhood. I remember it when I think about when I was younger. And what ways did it impact me both positively and negatively? And in my case, I gave you this whole idea that me being a firstborn, I didn't think it was a bad thing, or I didn't think it was a big thing, but that really has shaped me. What's interesting is it wasn't until the end of last year that my sister and I had a conversation, and I said, I grew up believing that I have to take care of you. And now I know you absolutely are able to take care of yourself. That is not my responsibility. And so I'm releasing that. I'm releasing that voice of our mom, who has now been passed for 30 years this year. 30 years. But in my mind, I kept hearing her tell me that. And I had to understand that that voice, whereas it made sense back then because she was younger, she was, I had to take care of her. She was vulnerable, but now she's a grown woman and can do it herself. There may be things for you that you're absolutely going to have to release, but you can't release it until you're aware of it. So if you get a chance, I want you to, and write your answer down immediately. If it comes to you immediately, like, oh yeah, me. I think about my aunt who integrated Frederick High School. That was a seminal event. What was the positive for her and what was the negative for her in terms of the way that it shaped her? So if you think of the event or the personality trait or the belief, write it down now, and then say, how did it impact me both positively and negatively? Because we really have to call those things out and then figure out where we're going to go from here. So my team has put the answer in the chat. I see where Janice has said, striving to focus on self-care and my health. That's where she's being proud of herself. I really love that. Mary says, I will take some time to recognize my emotions and identify what's triggering them so I can develop effective coping strategies to better manage these feelings. Yes, because our feelings no longer control us. We are getting processes and strategies and systems so that we change 2025. I am excited. I'm always excited. But can I tell you, I'm not always excited. But these interactions with you really bring me up and really make me excited. So tomorrow, when we come together on our 14th day, I am going to give you a glimpse into a special project. And that project was suggested by one of our coaches to memorialize what we are doing together. So I'll give you more information. It's an optional project that won't take you much time, but it's a good way for us to capture what we've done and celebrate it. That being said, I really am appreciative that you've taken the time to comment, that you've taken the time to do the work. I'm encouraging you to answer this question about your personality, your experiences, and your beliefs, because this is a big part of what's going to get out of our way in 2025. We are ready to do this. We will do this individually and collectively. That is the power of this process. All right, I'll see you tomorrow on the 14th as we close 2 weeks together. That is something to be celebrated. All right, have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.